Something got to change, man. This is some bullshit. I can't keep going through this. I feel super, super sick right now. Like, I'm almost 100% sure I have some type of infection. But I don't think it's because I'm actually sick. I think I'm sick of watching this fucking team play football. I feel like it's the same thing over and over again every year in my life watching this team play. I really only got to witness the tail end of that dynasty. And you know how sad that is? To hold on to something since you were like 6 that you barely remember? Dude, I am frustrated with this team. And I'm not saying I'm not going to be a fan because, I mean, let's be honest, I'll watch next week even though there's nothing to play for at this point. Okay, that's wrong. You still got to play for pride because, I mean, I can't be out here head to toe in USC gear and we go winless the rest of the season, which I don't project us to do, but, I mean, you got to play for something. So it's not meaningless. But, I mean, something got to change, man. Maybe you start looking at Lincoln Riley, find a new coach. And I get it's probably not feasible. SC pays him way too much money. The thing that bugs me the most, or you could say the straw that broke the camel's back, was this weekend. This last weekend. Losing to Penn State. You can't lose to Penn State. I feel like they're the biggest frauds in college football. But we made them look like a goddamn championship team. And it's also the way we lost. Penn State used the Utah playbook against us, and we lost the same exact way. We lost to a tight end. And it's frustrating that it's the same exact way. It's always, no one's covering the tight end, and he's going for touchdowns. When we try to actually get there, he breaks tackles, and it's always one guy. Where at least the Michigan game, I got over it because it was a team effort. Michigan just beat us on the line of scrimmage, and it was a group effort. But whenever there's one guy wearing 44 playing tight end, uncovered down the field, and I'm not saying, like, kid's a baller. I mean, shit. Dude can play. He's going to play on Sundays, I think. I mean, I hope for our defense's sake, but, I mean, he should play on Sundays. It doesn't change the fact that it still pisses me off. It's starting to feel like an annual tradition, too. Oh, yeah, by the way, Tyler Warren, that tight end, I think either tied a record or broke a record against us, which should never happen. You usually break records against, like, Utah State, someone like that, not USC. God damn it, I hate this conference. We should have never came to this conference. Not because it's tough, just, I mean, I get why they always get beat up by the SEC because they have poor officiating that helps them, at least helps the big brands, which we should be, but they'll help Oregon before they help us. But whenever they play a team that actually has talent on a neutral field, they get destroyed. Michigan's 1 year was an outlier. And then they'll bring up, oh, what about Ohio? Ohio State was almost 10 years ago, y'all. Like, besides that, you had one close game with Georgia since then. And Georgia was always going to win that game. You had no shot. But look, that's besides the point. It's the same goddamn thing. Penn State is the new Utah. Minnesota is the new Oregon State. Michigan is Stanford with more talent. This has been happening for a decade now. Something has to just break loose at some point. We can't keep doing this. I would start with getting rid of that offensive line coach. Henson has to go. I mean, he's not developed a single player. He came into a team that had a really good offensive line. Say what you will about Clay Helton. I didn't like the guy, but he can develop offensive linemen. Since Lincoln's been there, I'll give him credit. The spots where you knew that he knew what he was doing has gotten better. Our quarterback play, way better. I mean, I might have some questions about Miller. Like, I don't think he's terrible. And even our wide receiver group has felt more dynamic. Now listen to me, I'm saying group as a whole, because SC's always had good receivers. We're wide receiver U. Now, this one kind of has some issues, but we'll talk about that later. But the offensive lines have gotten worse and worse every year since he took the job. And that's not the players. I actually think that we have a higher caliber player at each spot now on the offensive line. His knock has always been he's too loyal to the coaching staff that he brought from Oklahoma. Honestly, Henson probably should have gone last year. I mean, in hindsight, it's easy to say, but even during last year, we were terrible. And I know he wasn't directly from Oklahoma, but he was part of that first hiring cycle. So, to me, it's the same thing. It's like people forget Caleb was running for his life for most of the second half of that season. And look, I'm not trying to give Caleb Williams a pass. He was clearly good enough to not need excuses. Because last year it seemed like he was playing too much hero ball for no reason. But, I mean, if we look at what's happening now, he might have had a reason this whole time. And we just were, as a fan base, kind of jumping on him. We were probably being a little too harsh on him. Real quick, shout out to Caleb. Making that trash can in Chicago look like an actual football team. My main point is it has to start with Henson. We got to get rid of him. And Lincoln has to be the one to do it. If he can't make this move, then he might not be fit to be the head coach of the USC Trojans. And I might be overreacting right now, but I live in Las Vegas that has a weird amount of Midwest transplants that always talk about how tough Big Ten football is when it's really not. But right now, as a team, we're making them look right, and I hate that with like everything in my body. It's unacceptable for this program to not be in the playoff discussion, especially when you see teams like LSU, who we beat, win close games, and we can't seem to win one close game. Scratch that. It's that we can't close out close games. It's a travesty. You got to win games where you're in the plus side of the turnover margin. But we can't do that. Don't get me started on the referees either. I mean, believe me, I'm not saying this is all on Lincoln. We've had no help from the refs because they seem to want every Big Ten team to beat us. There's 2 defensive pass interference at the end of that Penn State game that were clear by the book, but those Big Ten refs might be worse than any Pac-12 ref ever was. They pick and choose who they want to win, and then they back them the whole game. Like in the Minnesota game, whenever they overturned a no-touchdown call, when there was really no evidence, no indisputable evidence that said that it was a touchdown. The funny thing is, I think that actually was a touchdown. But you can't overturn a call that you don't see. They should have stood on the field, whatever was called, but it didn't because they probably were like, oh man, we got to make sure Minnesota beats USC. And then even in the Michigan game, it's not as egregious, but there was multiple delay of games that Michigan was not called on that would have put them out of that 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 range, and they would have had to throw the ball. But I'm telling you, man, I cannot watch this Big Ten officiating no more. It's getting ridiculous. And we haven't talked about the players yet. They have some fault in this too. Like Miller, buddy, you shitted the bed, man. We could have gotten a field goal range. How do you overthrow a 6'6" wide receiver when there's no one else around him? Maybe it's like it's early onset CTE because Elijah Page and Mason Murphy keep letting everyone tee off on you, which isn't your fault. But you got to make that throw, man. I mean, I don't want him to replace you, but he might. And then all of our receivers need to get up the field when you catch the ball. Quit trying to juke people out. Zechariah, I'll always root for you, big dog. You're a Las Vegas local, and I know that he is explosive. The only thing about him is he keeps going backwards. He needs to go up the field, get first downs. Everything good happens closer to the end zone, to their end zone, not our end zone. But yet every single time it's a little screen route, he comes back to the line of scrimmage instead of just keep going forward. He needs to fix something fundamentally in his game. Defensively, I can't really complain. We've gotten better. I mean, it's clear that we are better than we were last year. But we have no depth. Which you can't blame on the DC coming in, but it's USC. We should never have an issue with depth. I mean, pay somebody. Pay any kid you like. We should have like multiple kids that are 350 pounds plus that can play football. It's ridiculous. And I'm aware that that's a bit unfair given everything that's happened recently with Bear leaving the team and even with other people like Rajon redshirting this season, and I get why he's doing it, and that's more of a college football problem than it is a USC problem. It just doesn't feel fun when you're watching the games. I mean, we got to give Lincoln another year. We don't have a choice. And like I said before, I like Lincoln, actually. I feel like there's more momentum with Lincoln than there ever was with Clay Helton. He got to make the right changes on offense. He made the right changes on defense. It's just frustrating when you start a season so well and you're already out of the playoff hunt by week 7. I just needed to get that off my chest. I mean, bottom line, USC is playing like a team with no talent when I know they have talent. But anyways, if you're a SC fan, let me know what you think. If you're a Big Ten fan, I just want you to know you suck.